Welcome to Niners Talk with John, Tim, and Brian. Let's talk Niners.
And Kittle's wide open and down to the 45.
Sure, Fisher, let me ask you something. Hey, Coach, go ahead. How can 6 of you miss a play like that, huh?
What is going on, Niners Nation? Is victory up? No, it's not. Thanks, Jake Moody. No, it's just fucking Tuesday.
Oh, that hurt. That's wrong. That's evil.
Well, don't be a kicker then. That's all I can tell you. Well,
Hot shakes, balls. And we're going to get into that, I know.
yes. We are now 1/3 of the way through the season. How are we feeling? Ryan, how are you feeling on this non-victory Tuesday?
I have chosen, as I said in our text thread, not to really read much through the game. I hate reliving losses, and I'm feeling okay. I'm trying to feel positive for next week. So I've got other stuff to keep me preoccupied this week,
like family and work and weird stuff like that. Oh, okay. I thought we were all
normal
about
stuff.
the podcast. Normal stuff. Okay. All right. Yeah. I guess football does
Tim?
take a backseat to some things. Yes.
Yeah. Tim, how are you doing?
Well, I'll just say that, yes, I did go back and rewatch the game, and it's worse the second time
Yikes.
around. So it's like, it's like, all right, let's go back and watch a painful memory. But, we said last week in our podcast that for the 49ers to lose, they were going to have to make a lot of self-inflicted mistakes. And I think David Lombardi put best where he said, in order for the 49ers to lose, a lot has to go wrong. And a lot did go wrong. But at the same time, they were in a position at the end of the game to kick the game-winning field goal. And Moody, he pushes the kick, a couple of feet over the left. We're having a much different conversation. But as it is, 49ers have their first loss of the year, 19-17, to a very good Cleveland Browns defense. Let's give credit where credit is due. The Browns defense is as good, if not better, than advertised. And the 49ers, Brock Purdy was under pressure for most of the game. We lost some key guys, Debo, CMC, Drake Greenlaw wasn't out there. But still, the 49ers were in a position to steal one. But we're going to see, we knew that at some point Brock Purdy and this team was going to face adversity. It's here now. And we're going to see how they respond next Monday night against the 2-4 Vikings. So first loss of the year, it's 5-1. I don't think we need to ring the panic meter just yet and cut Jake Moody, but it is what it is. But again, hats off to Cleveland. They played the game on their terms. Their defense is outstanding. Certainly a lot better than what we thought. I think the Browns were probably what we thought the Cowboys were going to be. And, it's at this point we're 5-1, but silver lining, the Eagles lose and the Seahawks lose. So the Niners didn't lose any ground.
Yeah. So for those of you turning in for the first time, we're three obsessed Niners fans who get together weekly to talk about our beloved 49ers. If you get a chance, follow us, leave a review, give us a like. And last week was probably one of our most subscribed episodes. To all of those you are listening again, thank you. But this week we're talking about the Browns game, going over it, and looking forward to the Monday Night Football game against the Vikings. So yeah, I don't think I have sworn a lot in football games this year except for this one. I said the word fuck a lot. It just seemed to me that the Niners were just out of sync the entire game. Like, it was a lot of them. Brock Purdy missing timing routes with Ayuk. Drake Moody pushing left and pushing left and pushing right.
Did you just felt Brick Purdy?
No, I said Brock
Purdy.
Moody. Brock Purdy. But yeah, it just, as Tim said, a lot really had to go wrong for the Niners to lose this game, including the weather. The refereeing was not good. It could have definitely been better. But the Browns are for real. And I think they're going to be pretty formidable. You have a good defense.
Yeah.
You can win games. I just
Yeah.
asked the Jets right now. So Brian, just overall thoughts on the game?
It's funny when Tim used the word adversity, like, a team like this with all these expectations, of Super Bowl or bust, one loss, equates to adversity, and hopefully, the team will rally around that. Watching this game on TV, I kind of, I came home probably around the second quarter, and John, I know you texted us when I was out during the first quarter that CMC scored, and I thought that was pretty early because I think it was maybe 5 minutes into the game.
Yeah.
And I thought I was going to constantly hear those texts like, CMC scored, Ayuk scored, and, my player of the week I thought was going to do really well was Debo. I thought he was going to score. And I was expecting to hear that thread, and I did not. And when I came home and turned it on around the second quarter, it just showed that the Niners were in a dogfight, and the Browns really showed up today. Or showed up on Sunday. That's kind of my thoughts on the game, and we'll see how they can do next week against Minnesota. So,
I thought Stefanski put it right, is that they dragged the Niners into the mud with them.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a pretty good way of looking at it.
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Tim,
And
Definitely.
I would say, as Brian was just saying there, the 49ers early on, I felt had real control of the game. Their first drive, they go right down to the field. McCaffrey, he rips off a 27-yarder. It's extended because of the face mask penalty. And I think that's maybe 4 face mask penalties that McCaffrey has endured so far this year. But they score quickly. And then Cleveland's first drive ends in the Fred Warner interception. And the Niners are in business at the 26. And they go backwards. And Moody comes in, he misses a 50-yard field goal, and you just get that feeling like, okay, that you don't want to let those slip by. So I felt the Niners had several opportunities in the first half to really, if Cleveland's playing from behind, by two possession scores, I think they're really in trouble because that puts it all on Walker. But as a result, as you said, John, we wanted to drag the 49ers into the mud with us. And that's exactly what they did because Walker, I didn't think he played great, but he was effective when he had to be. But it was the running game that was really that the Browns were able to sustain and keep drives, particularly in the second half going. So missed opportunities in the first half. Niners go in 10-7, but you just knew at that point, as you and I were talking, John, it was going to be a slugfest.
Yeah. And this is where I thought the Cleveland game plan was better than the Niners game plan. When I watched the Cleveland Browns screened the Niners wide 9 to death. And I was just thinking while I was watching the game, like, we have the same defensive alignment. Can't we? Why can't we do some screens? And I understand Debo got hurt and then later McCaffrey, but I'm like, Jordan Mason can't catch a screen. Elijah Mitchell can't catch a screen. I never George Kittle can't catch a screen.
Yeah.
It just seemed to me that it was way too conservative in terms of how he was calling the game. It was just a dud to me in terms of how Kyle kind of called the game. And the timing was really off. Again, it just wasn't a good game. But as you've said, we were still in a position to win it and pull out, victory from the jaws of defeat. And unfortunately, Jake just missed. So anyway, Brian, any other thoughts or specifics that come to mind on the Cleveland game?
Tim brought up a good point about the rushing. I was watching the game and Kareem Hunt had a couple, about 47 yards, and it was that the running back Jerome Ford had close to 84 yards. So just kind of watching those things, seeing that kind of slow death that that the Niners would have applied on someone else, to have that kind of come back on us was kind of disheartening. But, that's something that, if CMC didn't get hurt, I'm wondering, how would the tables have turned? Because I wanted, as you kind of mentioned there about the play calling, you wanted to see more rushing, because like Jordan Mason, he had some pretty good runs, and he got that score, and you would have wanted to see more of him.
Mason only carried 5 times, but for 27 yards. But I mean, CMC, I mean, he's got the 27 yarder to start the game. After that, his total, so he had 27 yards on that first carry. For the game, he had 43 yards. So if you take that attempt away, he's only rushing for 1.6 yards per attempt, which tells you exactly what Cleveland is doing there. I think I'm going to throw this out there and say, I think the Debo injury was more unsettling to the 49ers than the CMC injury. And here's why. John mentioned the lack of screen. I would have thought that Shanahan, had Debo been in there, would have been calling more of those. I know they tried one to Ray McCloud, which just got blown up. But I think the Debo injury, I see Shanahan putting Debo in the backfield as a back, with his speed, with his power. He can get to the edge. He can, push guys for a couple of extra yards. So you're looking at, a 2nd and 4 instead of a 2nd and 6. But at the same time, with Debo being out, the 49ers in the second half offensively just went backwards. And we've talked about the Cleveland defense, but they brought in some blitz packages that Purdy had absolutely no time to throw. And
it just,
go ahead, Brian.
It just seemed like that pocket was totally collapsing on
in the second and third,
all the time.
Third and fourth quarters, the 49er offense could not get anything going. And, you look at their second half, results are interception, punt, the Jordan Mason touchdown, punt, and then they missed the field goal at the end of the game. So John, I don't know if it was the game plan. I think it was more Debo being out myself. I think you would have seen those screens more of, but also, with the Cleveland defense, they were just not able to get into any rhythm whatsoever in the second half.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, it was just a confluence of factors on why the Niners lost. Really good defense, rained a little bit. Timing was off, early body clock game. Refs did not have a great day on the field, and it just wasn't meant to be. So, but as we always do, let's look over our keys to victory. The first one we had was contain a mobile quarterback, and it actually wasn't Deshaun Watson. And I wouldn't really put PJ Walker in the mobile quarterback category. So I think we generally did this. And then 2 is don't have a letdown game. Well, Brian, do you think the Niners had a letdown game?
I was going to ask that same question. I do think that, of course I think that. So I don't know if they took the foot off the gas a little bit this week, but it definitely, I don't know. Right. I don't know if it was something about the early game, or if they were just so hyped up about beating Dallas, and, and how enthusiastic all of us were on last week's podcast. It was bound to happen. I expected them to lose some game. They were going to go 17-0, but I just did not expect that to happen kind of this week. So
yeah, what I found interesting, I didn't realize this until I read it the other day, is that when we lost to Atlanta last year, it was also week 6. But I kind of think that this is a letdown game, more on the fact that we didn't execute. I thought the Niners were flying around and doing everything they could to win. So I didn't see they were flat. They were just out of sync. I mean, we had, there's another, Tim, how many missed tackles did we have?
I think we had 18 missed tackles that we counted up.
Yeah. And before that we had 9 combined over 4 games. So it was just slabby. Tim, would you put this as a letdown game?
No, I wouldn't put it as a letdown game. I think, frankly, the Niners were just out of sync. I think a lot of things hit them at the same time. What I did not expect was so many self-inflicted penalties. We haven't seen that all year. But when you start, you're on your 25. First down is a holding call. Now you're 2nd and 20. Next thing is a false start. Now you're 2nd and 25.
Mhm.
So if you're the Cleveland defense, you're just pinning your ear back because you know exactly what the 49ers are going to do. They're going to rush the passer, and they do it very well. But no, I mean, I thought the play of the defense, I think they came to play. I mean, Fred had a great game. It was great to see Randy Gregory in there as well. It's just, at this point, I think you just chalk it up to today. The football gods decided this was what was going to happen, and football is an imperfect game, and calls, penalties, weather, all those things create the perfect storm, and the Niners were upset by Cleveland.
Oh, there you go. The other thing Cleveland had going for it, and I actually think this was an advantage, they were coming off their bye. They looked fresh and ready to go.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I actually think for them it was a bit of an advantage. And last week we faced the number one defense in Dallas. This is the number one defense.
I agree.
I love the Niners. There's a great defense, but that defense was scary good. And it's scary good in the fact that the only guy I know, or there's two guys I know, is Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith. But the other guys were flying around, and they were maintaining their gaps. They played man coverage. You got some very good wide receivers. And that defense was real.
Yeah.
Yeah, they brought in Jim Schwartz this year
Mhm.
as their new defensive coordinator, and he really it really showed. Like, I don't know, he's coached like Detroit back in the past, and I remember his run-ins with Harbaugh
Mhm.
Oh,
back in
yeah.
the day, but
Oh, sure.
he really he really brought a really strong defense. I
Yeah.
was just impressed kind of the way they did things there.
And
So
And here's a telling statistic. The 49ers did not have a single first down in the third quarter. Prior to their final drive, they had one
Mhm.
first down in the second half. So,
yikes.
yeah.
So looking forward a little bit, this is the worst offensive performance we've seen from the Niners. Sam, what do you think the opposing defensive coordinators are going to look at and what Jim Schwartz did and try and copy?
Well, obviously, they were able to shut down the running game. When the Niners can't lead on that, and you're putting them in 2nd and longs and 3rd and longs consistently, well, then you're bringing in blitzes to Purdy. You're throwing off his timing, and we saw that. He was behind and in front of his receivers to Ayuk, I think, on 3 or 4 occasions. He missed. I know the play. There was a play in the second quarter where he tried to hit CMC. It ended up being a free play. Cleveland had jumped offside, but he tried to hit CMC down the right sideline and just overthrew him by about 2 or 3 yards. And you just kind of look back to those plays and said, that could have made a difference. That could have made a difference. So, yeah, I think you're gonna try to bottle up the Niners running game as much as possible and force Purdy to beat you. Now I know we're going to talk about the Vikings here in a second, but the Vikings, I think defense right now is ranked 28. So, I think they've got one of the worst run defenses in the league. So that'll be a tall challenge for the Vikings to emulate what Cleveland did this past Sunday.
Yeah. And then the last key to victory was we thought a new star would shine. Nobody shined. And this is the thing.
Maybe Randy Gregory. Maybe he had a sack.
Yeah, well, we talked more on offense, I think, because Ronnie Bell was nowhere to be found, and he's been kind of one of my favorites this year. Jawan Jennings was starting to shine a little bit towards the end of the game. George Kittle only had 1 yard receiving, and again, I still kind of push this onto the game plan. Like it just felt like a dud. I don't think Kyle did this. So, well, let's get to our stars of the game. And we only have 3 this week. So, Brian, who is your
Oh,
star
boy.
of the game?
Well, I really didn't have any.
Okay. It's fine.
I'll go with Randy Gregory because he had that one sack and he's new to the squad. So
Yeah.
oh, and Lenore, right?
Yeah.
He got that pick.
You got the
so
pick.
I will say those are my two.
You know, it's funny. We didn't
That's it.
mention Randy in our lead up. I kind of forgot he was on the team, but Tim, I was impressed.
Mhm.
That was about the one shining light in that game. Randy Gregory played really well.
Yeah, I mean, he does get a sack. I think he's going to be a great complement to Bosa. You know, if they can collapse the pocket, I think particularly against a quarterback like Kirk Cousins, who we know is not mobile. He's not going to, he's not going to pull anything like a Deshaun Watson or any other or Russell Wilson, where he's going to gash it for 18 yards on 3rd and 10. So. Yeah, the Niners definitely have a lot of weapons on defense. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do the rest of the season.
Yeah, especially as he learns the system. So, Tim, who was your star of the game?
Well, I'm going to give it to the defense. It wasn't their best game, but they were opportunistic. Fred gets the pick. Lenore gets the pick. And that's where Cleveland had all the momentum. Lenore makes the pick. Niners score on the next play. They take the lead. Bosa sacks Walker on a 3rd down to force a long field goal. Cleveland did end up making it to pull within one. So they were opportunistic. That's why I don't think the 49ers dialed this one in. But the Niners defense was making plays to keep the whole team in the game, and did so because as we've said at the outset of this podcast, Niners were in a position to win the game on the last play.
So my star of the game is Fred. I saw an interview with him earlier in the week where he was talking about Quan Alexander, and Quan used to carry a football around the facility like all the time and take it to practice. He'd take it to meetings, and Fred started doing that when he was kind of under Quan's, as Quan was his mentor. And then this week, right before the Dallas game, he started doing it again, and he got his pick. And I think if I'm willing to bet, he's still doing it because he got his second pick. And, he's just the heartbeat. He keeps that defense going. Another pick. I think he had 8 or so tackles. But again, just another defensive player of the year performance. Really looked good, and just excited to see how he just keeps this defense going. Yeah, the week was weird. It was just a weird week with the Eagles losing, and the Buffalo almost lost. But let's get to my bets. So another 0-4 week. I had the Niners and Browns over 39, and once again, it's the field goal that does it to me. Jake had hit it. I would have been over 39, but he didn't. He missed 2, so we were under. I will never do this again, but I bet on Seattle plus 2.5 over the Bengals.
Blasphemy.
Yes. And God said, I have been smited. So you lost that one. Saints and Texans over 41. This was on track, and then they stopped playing football. Nobody got in the end zone, so that was over 41. And then Tampa Bay, Detroit, it ended up being more defensive, and Tampa Bay just did not execute. I blame the uniforms. Those creamsicle uniforms. I don't know why. They never bring back the creamsicle, but they look awful.
They never really were successful when they wore those uniforms.
Exactly.
I don't know. It's like the 49ers, don't bring back those black uniforms. They never.
Bad juju. Don't do it. So we are 13, 19, and 1. So if you're betting the opposite side of me, congratulations. You're doing very well right now. But I'm determined to get this back on track. So this week's bet, Detroit's playing Baltimore. Detroit is the underdog at +3. I mean, they're playing in Baltimore.
Okay.
But Detroit, to me, is right now one of the best teams in football. And they are sneaky good. And I think they're going to be the Niners' biggest competition for the number 1 seed because of their strength of schedule. But I think they're going to beat the Ravens, who have looked suspect this year, even though Lamar's having an awesome year. Jared Goff just looks great. Shout out to Marin Catholic. But yeah, he looks great. And then based off having watched the Browns, they were only favored by 2 over the Colts.
That's
Colts,
surprising.
Yeah, Colts didn't look that great. I mean, they're visiting Indianapolis, but Minshew's going to be the quarterback for a good long time, and I think Deshaun's coming back. So I kind of like that one. And then it's Rams +3. I wrote actually in the notes over the Rams, so that seems a little odd.
They are playing. I was just looking at that. Rams are playing the Steelers.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, so I'm going with that one because the Steelers' offense is not good. And the Rams have been in it. And then the Dolphins over the Eagles. I'm going with the Dolphins. The Eagles just lost to the Jets. They've been winning ugly, and they really haven't beaten anybody just yet. And this Dolphins team on offense is like a track meet. So I'll be curious to see what Fangio comes up with to keep Jalen Hurts guessing. But right now, A.J. Brown is something like 50% of their offense. So you take him out of the game, I think you're going to win. So those are my 4 bets this week. The Niners are 6.5 over Minnesota, but I'm not touching that because
Don't mess with the mojo.
yeah, don't mess with the other stat I heard this morning, which is interesting, is there have been more games decided by 3 points or less than almost any time in NFL history. And scoring is actually down this year. So I was kind of taking that under advisement and kind of looking for games where I'm like, okay, like I'm not going to bet against the Niners, but looking for games that I'm like, okay, +3, +2 in those kind of pick'ems in terms of like what we're gonna get. So yeah, I'm feeling good about these ones. So
It's funny, John. All the games you picked this week could be decided by a field goal, like all the scores here. So Detroit and the Ravens, and then the Browns and the Colts.
I'm hoping they're
all
not.
within a field goal.
I would like a less stressful Sunday, which is nice because Sunday is actually a day to just enjoy football.
I was going to say we will have a less stressful Sunday. We can enjoy our red zone.
Yeah, exactly.
So John, you've also said that you've lost like the last 2 weeks in a row, right? Where you haven't won. So I guess everyone should take the opposite bet.
We still love you, John.
I will rise like a phoenix. Sprinkle money. I'll just be making it rain all over the place.
All right. Ravens -3,
All
Colts +1,
And then-
Steelers.
Then John springs for appetizers at Applebee's
Yeah. On a date night.
on a date
Yeah,
night.
Oreo shake. Anyway, what brings us to this time of Niners trivia time with Brian. I'm guessing a Minnesota themed Niners trivia.
You got that right. Okay. So
If you ask a question about Fargo, I'm really going to be impressed.
I should have put that in there as my darn it, number 5. But no. All right. Okay. So in 1959, the ownership group of Bill Boyer, Max Winter, and is it H.P. Skoglund were awarded an AFL franchise. The Minnesota franchise became an NFL franchise after which city backed out?
I'm going to go with St. Paul.
I'm going to go with I'll go with Kansas City.
All right. So John says St. Paul, which is in Minneapolis, just right near Minneapolis. And then Tim, you're saying Kansas City.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe it was something along the lines of the Dallas Texans, who eventually became the Kansas City Chiefs, if memory serves.
I knew that was the reason I didn't like Mahomes.
That's stretching it a tad.
All right. Question number 2. Minnesota great number 10 Fran Tarkenton played quarterback from 1961 to 1978. What team was he traded to in the middle of that? And how many years was he their quarterback?
It was the New York Giants. I think he was there for 2 years.
Whatever Tim said.
All right.
He played for
Tim
That's
says
Incredible,
the
which was a wonderful 80s show that John and I watched every Monday night.
It really,
With, with Kathy Lee Crosby, and I don't remember the third guy.
John Davidson.
Oh, wow. See, that's the kind of trivia we need to be asking. But anyway.
Well, I was going to ask that, but I figured you guys would know that. So
just the fact that John knows John Davidson, that is impressive. John should get honor. John should get, kudos for that one. He gets an extra gold star.
That guy's hair never changed.
Oh, yeah. All right. You say New York Giants for 2 years.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Number 3. What is the name of the Minnesota Vikings mascot?
Skull.
I don't know what John said. I don't know.
By the way, if my wife wasn't leaving for Chicago on Monday, I would have really wanted to go to that game on Sunday, because that skull chant at the beginning of those games looks freaking awesome. When they go like skull, skull. So anyway, skull the mascot.
All right.
All right. You both say skull. Okay. And then number 4, which Minnesota Vikings player's number was retired in 2001?
In 2001. Is there any significance to it being 2001?
Yes. I'm going to leave it at that.
Okay. Well, 2000.
Unless you guys want to, maybe I'll answer if you guys.
Well, how about just one quick hit? Like, is there a position, or I just? All right. Is it related to 9/11? I'll ask that.
No, but no.
Okay.
But it's not related to 9/11, but it was how am I trying to say this? It was an event that happened right before 9/11.
Right before 9/11.
In the summer of 2001.
I do not know.
Only thing I'm going to say, this is just a reach, is Bud Grant. I mean, I don't know if he's going to have his number retired or a whistle or whatever, but I can't think of anybody.
I'm drawing a blank on that one.
Okay. All right. We'll do the answers in a bit.
All right. Well, let's wash our hands of the game that happened in Cleveland.
Well, I do think we need to. There's a couple things I do want to before we move on to the Vikings. There's a couple things I do want to go back to. And then we'll bury it and we'll move on. But I do think we have to talk about a couple of key moments in the game. One of which were 2 penalties on the Browns' final drive. The first of which happened on a 3rd and 10. Walker, shoots it over 3rd and 10. The Niners get flagged. It was Gibson. Walker was trying to hit more. Gibson is flagged for unnecessary roughness. So I went back to take a look at that particular play, and I mean, at first glance, I thought, ooh, that could be a hit. Now, when that could be a helmet to helmet. When I went back and looked, we all saw the replay, and yeah, we saw it was a shoulder to shoulder. It was a legal hit. But when I saw who called the penalty, it was the line judge. And from his angle, I can see why he threw the flag in real time, because it does look like his head snaps back. So I think it was a call I think they could have discussed a little more, see if anybody had a better look at it. But it was such a critical moment in the game, because if that flag isn't thrown, the Browns are looking at 4th and 10. But your thoughts on it?
So here's the problem with that call, and this is me putting my ref hat on.
Yeah,
it's all about, and then I don't do football, but I do basketball, but it's still kind of the same thing. It's all about positioning. So that line judge is over on the left-hand side,
Yeah.
and he is behind the wide receiver, and he sees Gibson launch himself at the receiver. He doesn't see the lack of head-neck contact, but he sees the head snap back. The other judge or referee is over down the line on the right, and he's kind of almost in the same spot, but probably had a better view of the play. The problem is that in the NFL, the umpire referee is no longer in the middle of the field.
Mhm.
And he would have had the best look at it in terms of picking up the flag, in terms of the hit just happening without it in the shoulder. The only person I can also think that would have had an angle on that is the actual referee, but he's going to be looking at the line for holding. And so that call is just not going to be seen. And this is where I think the NFL really needs to take a little bit more ownership of the officiating and be like, look, everything's going to go up to an eye in the sky because there are way more angles than the referees out in the field. They can slow it down and they can just radio down to the guys with, a thing in their ear saying, which they all have anyway, because they all talk to one another with those microphones. Is like, no, that's not, you didn't have the angle on it. That wasn't a, unpersonal, or personal foul. So Brian,
So, Tim, remind me, what time was that in the game? I know it was the fourth quarter. It was on the last
It was
drive,
the
but
fourth quarter. Yeah. And the Browns, it was on the drive. It was the Browns' last drive of the game. They were down by 1 point. There was about
Right.
2:40 to go in the game, and it was 3rd and 10 on the Cleveland 26.
I couldn't remember if it was before 2 minutes or within.
It was before the 2
minutes
minute
of the
warning.
game.
It was before the 2 minute warning.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brian.
I'm just kind of, I know that, there's scrutiny on this play, but would you guys think that under 2 minutes, within 2 minutes to go, like after the 2 minute warning, would this play be deemed reviewable? Or is it because from your perspective, if it's beyond, if we haven't hit the 2 minute warning yet, should it not be, one of those like situations where like under 2 minutes it's reviewable?
It's an intriguing thought. I think, and I get what John's saying because of, the angle that you can have with, TV. You can always get, a much better look, a second look at it. And, somebody upstairs in New York can say, no, that really wasn't a personal foul. It was a clean hit. I think why the NFL is probably very reluctant to do that is because a few years ago, they tried instant replay of pass interference after referees botched the NFC Championship game with the Lions and the Saints. And that did not work out well at all. So I think that's probably why the Niners, the NFL is hesitant to try to put something in there. And I also need to say that, that call did not lose the 49ers the game. There were many, many other things that contributed to the loss. It just was a key moment in the game where we look back and we say, well, what if, based on the replay of it?
Yeah, I think, there's two things, and then we'll go to the next thing. With the pass interference review, it was the coach that could challenge it. And to me, the coach,
that's a good point.
Just take him out of it because they're going to be biased to begin with. Really put it in the hands of an experienced referee who knows the rules and can, kind of bring it up. The other thing I would say, this is my point from a referee, is I know when I've had a bad game and I go back and watch the tape and it's like painful, like, man, I just had a bad game. I guarantee you that crew went back and was just like, we had a bad game. Now they're going to get letters and things like that.
Sure. Yeah.
But that's where I think the NFL, because these games are getting so close, everything kind of matters. They really need to take ownership of it and have something where they can just review it and be like, no, it isn't what it is. So,
Well, I think, we can look at that call. The other call earlier in the game that I took an issue with. Well, let's be honest. Any call that goes against the 49ers, I have an issue with. But that's just me being me. I think it was the second quarter. Walker goes back to throw. He's hit. And for a moment, I thought, oh, it's a fumble. It's a fumble. My problem wasn't so much that the call eventually went to, that they were, or I think I don't remember if they reviewed it exactly, but it was that the referee blew his whistle immediately and signaled incomplete pass.
Mm-hmm.
And in that thing, I was like, I think you need to let that play finish, then go back and take a look at it. I think it was close. Walker's trying to kind of underhand the ball forward, but that could have been a huge momentum swing to the 49ers at the end of the first half. So, again, it wasn't so much that it was intentional grounding, which is what they ultimately ruled. It was the fact that the referee blew his whistle so fast. And we've seen in many occasions where they will let plays just continue because maybe we didn't get that right. So they have a review, they look at it, and they make the call. So John, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. It's where, the NFL has to, I think, take, a better look at it. And maybe it's something the competition committee can look at and we can pilot something next year. But, the Niners did have 12 penalties. Certainly, those kinds of penalties are killers. As we said, I think last week, you can't put the game in the hands of the referees. Niners had plenty of opportunities not to let that not happen. But I did want to bring up those two calls because I thought they were critical parts of the game.
Yeah, and again, this is where if you have an NFL development league, you can try these ideas out.
Yeah.
And that's where, again, I think they should do something like that. So anyway, Tim, you said you had one more key thing to discuss.
Well, Jake Moody, missed the field goal at the end of the game. And I don't know how you guys felt, but when he lined up, my heart was pounding. I didn't feel good about the kick. I didn't feel good about the spot. It's that creeping feeling where I don't know what's going to happen, man. That was coming over me. So one of the things, it was a head scratcher for me from Kyle Shanahan. When the Niners got down in the Cleveland territory, they got down, Jordan Mason picked up about 3 yards. It's 2nd and 7. There's 40 seconds left. And I thought they were going to run one more play, but the Niners let the ball, and they also had they saw it either one timeout or maybe even two.
One.
But Kyle let the clock run down, and I thought, hey Mason, hey he'd had 5 carries so far. I know you're running into the teeth of the Cleveland defense, but I would have tried to pick up a few more yards. And I know he's down to the 23. You get 3 more yards. You get, that's a little more of an advantage to Jake. So I was a little puzzled that Kyle decided to just run the clock all the way down. I guess he didn't want to take a chance. I would have run Jordan one more time with the timeout that you had. You could have, run one more and then that'll be that. But that was a head scratch to me. I don't know if you guys, picked up on that either.
I didn't pick up on that part, but when Jake lined up, I was like, okay, come on, just put it through. Like, we'll escape with a win. And then when he didn't, there was a ginormous F-bomb that escaped my mouth. And I'm like, fuck it, I'm out of here. I'll go play golf. So,
anyway. And so for Jake, right now he's under the gun. There's no question about that. He was drafted to make kicks like this. He's replacing Robbie Gould, but I went back and looked at, last year, Robbie, hey, he had a chance to win against the Raiders at the end of regulation. He misses, albeit the game was tied. He does come back and kick the game winner. You go back to 2021, and the Niners had a chance to win against the Bengals at the end of regulation. He missed that one. Now, Niners, of course, came back and won in overtime against the Bengals. So, I loved Robbie as much as anybody, but he did have his share of misses, and times where he could have really put the 49ers. I would just say he could ice the game, and he had his share of misses too. So, I hope Jake is able to just move past this because we're going to depend on him again. There's no doubt about that for a game-winning field goal. So I hope he's able to just take this and brush it off.
So Tim, I have some things to say about that. So
Sure. Okay.
Some
I,
things.
No, please.
well, yes, I was disappointed, just like everyone else, that obviously Jake Moody missed that. I mean, I think the way that the camera angle was set
Yeah.
behind you were watching it, it looked like it was already at an angle. So I have the perception.
So the camera angle, you're like, oh, he's not getting
Yeah,
that
that
one.
screwed it up. And as I said, I think Wisnowski held the laces wrong on the, when he was,
Laces out.
just about like that whole, like, you're right. Gould's missed a ton of field goals. Like, he's missed field goals too.
He had his
That's-
moments where he missed. Yeah.
Yeah. But in terms of watching that last drive, because I know there was a lot of criticism, and there's always going to be in any sort of loss to Shanahan or whoever the offensive play caller is. He had one timeout, right? And I think he kept it just in case it was going to be like a bad,
Yeah.
just
I would agree.
And so if you ran Mason in that situation, here's what's to say that Mason isn't tackled and he gets like a good run. And I think it was like 7 seconds left or something, right? Clock.
Yeah.
So let's say he gets a ton of yards and he doesn't do what he's doing. And then he just happens to run and he runs out the clock. I mean, does that come into your mind about like why Shanahan done what he did?
I don't think it was running out the clock. I think it was more that the Cleveland defense had been so effective. He didn't want to take a chance with Mason getting hit in the backfield or something. It was a wet day. Maybe Purdy mishandles the ball. He's just like, look, I got it in the 23. I'm just going to run out the clock. I would have gone for just one more play. I just would have eked out maybe a couple more yards. Maybe he's positioned the ball maybe where Mason or Moody likes to hit it. It was more puzzling. I mean, it's certainly a makeable kick. It just, as I said, it was a head scratcher with 40 seconds left. I would have tried to look just a little bit more, but I'm not an NFL head coach.
If I remember, like, where would you guys? I didn't watch this replay, but was it lined up on the left side of the hash marks?
Pretty much in the middle.
Yeah.
Or was it in the middle? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I also told him I was looking at this podcast as part therapy session.
No, you're right about that.
We're going to get all of our feelings out. The one other thing that I do have to give kudos to, although it's not going to earn him a star of the game, is Brock Purdy did not have a good game. And I'm sure our resident historian can point out sometimes when Montana or Young didn't have a good game. But he still tried to find a way to win.
Sure.
And came really close to doing it. I think, Tim, do you have any like Montana, like he had a horrible game, all of a sudden he just was like,
oh, I absolutely. I mean, the best example was '88. The Niners played the LA Raiders, or the LA Raiders at the time, or the Raiders were in LA. And John, you and I were at that game. Niners lose 9-3. The offense was horrible. Montana had a lousy game. The next week, he plays the Washington Redskins on Monday night. And for the next probably year and a half, he was he was Hall of Fame Joe Montana. The Niners won the Super Bowl in '88. The next year is '89, where they just, I think had one of the best teams in NFL history. There's that. There's also, you can go back to '94. The Niners are playing the Eagles. Eagles pound the 49ers 40-8. And this was the team that had Dion. This is the team that had Ricky Waters. And after that game, the Niners just went on a tear.
Yeah.
So, it was a wake up call for the Niners. And, Young and Montana had their moments. This is Purdy's moment. It happens to every quarterback. So I think, looking again at the Niners, they've got so many weapons still, but it's adversity, and we're going to see how this team deals with it.
Yep. And I think on that note, can we move on from the Browns?
Yes, let's bury the Browns game and never speak of it again.
Oh, we'll speak of it again, but let's talk about the Vikings. Obviously, this is a team we've played a bunch in the playoffs, but let's kind of talk about some keys for victory. We've heard some news. I think first key is let's get healthy. Out of these three, Brian, who do you think is going to be playing? We got CMC, Debo, Trent, and Dre. Who do we need to have back?
Well, Dre Greenlaw would be very helpful from a defensive standpoint. So love to see him back. I just, I don't think Oren Burks and Flanagan Fowles, they were present, but they don't have the same gravitas as Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner together in the linebacker
middle.
core.
Yeah.
Yeah. So love to see him back. Trent Williams, he'd be great too. He had a tough assignment this week against Myles Garrett.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about that, but he had a tough one. Out of the offensive guys, either one of them. I mean, I'm liking. I was giving some thought to Tim what you were saying about Debo, and if you have him there, he's a pseudo running back, he's a pseudo receiver, so he could probably account for some loss of CMC if CMC needs to rest, another week or two.
Tim.
Well, I mean, I expect to see Drake Greenlaw back in the lineup next Monday night. Trent, I think I give it one chance out of 3. He's got an ankle sprain. And as Brian said, he had a tough assignment this week. He had given up 5. He gave up 5 pressures in Cleveland. And I know we said we put that one to bed, but he hadn't given up 5 pressures all season until that last game. So that's just another thing to think about. I don't know. I think Debo, I think it's one chance in 3 that Debo and Trent play. CMC, I would not expect to see him against the Vikings. I think that, yes, he escaped a serious injury. I don't know if Kyle wants to push it against the Vikings. The only thing I think the 49ers have going for them is that they do get an extra day of rest, which could be, very helpful. They can at least, maybe do some walkthroughs in practice. Normally, if you're not on the Thursday practice, if it's a Sunday game, that means you're probably not going to see much in the lineup, or you're not going to see much of the game plan. We'll see who practices this Friday. I think that'll be the telltale sign, but I wouldn't expect to see, I'm going to say, I don't expect to see Trent. I think maybe Debo. I think for sure Dre. CMC, I think, is doubtful.
Yeah, I actually wouldn't mind seeing CMC take a day off. Having watched him these last, but there's no doubt he's aware. There's no doubt he's a physical back. But I kind of start to wonder about the tread on the tires. He just keeps I do think I'm beginning to come around to the thing of he might be getting targeted because the face masks just keep coming and coming and coming. And after a while, it's like, guys, there's a little bit of a trend here. So in that way, I honestly just want them to get past the Vikings and maybe play them all on the Bengals and then get to that bye week and just get healthy. We've been very fortunate this year, knock on wood, with not having anybody knocked out for a long time. But I do really wonder about CMC and just the abuse he's been kind of taking. So I wouldn't mind seeing him sit out. From what I've read, it's the same kind of injury Purdy had, so it's a pain tolerance thing. But, Purdy's a quarterback, and CMC, he's going to take hits, and people are going to take shots at him.
Yeah.
So, which brings us to the second key to the game, which is the offense.
Yep.
We're just keep talking about the Browns game because they were just so out of rhythm that you just have to get back to square one. How do you Brian, how would you say these guys get back in rhythm?
I would say run the ball, and then that'll open up your passing lane. So, I mean, obviously with CMC not there, you're going to rely heavily on Jordan Mason to get you some of those yards. Elijah Mitchell was pretty ineffective this last game, so you'd love to see him get some touches for some positive yardage. So, get Jordan Mason, get Elijah Mitchell. If Jordan Mason can get 50 yards, I think that's a positive. If Elijah Mitchell can get close to 50, above 30, I think would be very helpful to Kittle and Ayuk and Debo if he plays, and Jennings. So, Tim, what about your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the 49ers have a terrific opportunity this Monday night against Cleveland. Their defense is ranked in the lower tiers, both rushing and passing. So even with CMC out, we've seen what Elijah can do. He was a key point of the offense in 2021 and even the first part of 2022 before CMC showed up. So we've seen what he can do with the ball, but I would really like to see Jordan Mason have a breakout game. And if Debo is back, I wouldn't be surprised to see Shanahan run those screens that John was looking for in the Browns game. And with a defense that I think is, the defensive rushing, it is the Vikings defensive rushing is ranked 28th. So that can set some things up, particularly in the passing game. And, a team coming off a tough, gut wrenching loss where, you had opportunities to win. If the Niners come in, frankly, just pissed off, they could make life miserable for the Vikings. And so I expect the 49ers to bounce back in the minute. I really do.
I would like to see Kittle getting a little more involved. I thought
Yeah.
last year Purdy had Kittle almost as a security blanket. It
Mhm.
doesn't seem like there's a lot this year. So I'd like to see the security blanket used a little bit more. But yeah, I think just getting them back into rhythm and those little screens, little touch passes will be good. Plus it's indoors. It's not gonna be the weather. I think we're gonna be good. And then we move to the defense. And we've played the Vikings a lot before. And Tim, I mean, when we pressure Kirk Cousins, it's really tough on him. But if we don't,
Yeah.
he can carve you up.
Sure. No, I mean, Cousins reminds me a lot of Stafford from LA. He doesn't want to get hit. He's not going to gash it for a lot of yards. So, this is a game where, Bosa and Gregory, they can collapse the pocket, and you've got, Hargrave and Armstead bringing that up. I really hope to see the front four really take off in this game. Because, as good as they've been, I mean, they're a good team. Don't get me wrong. I think we were expecting as fans a lot more sacks, a lot more disruption. We've seen that from time to time, but Kirk Cousins right now is leading the NFL in pass attempts. So that tells you exactly what Vikings are going to do offensively. So they really don't have a running game that is much of a threat. So, the Niners get them in those second and 10s, 3rd and 8s, 3rd and long, just pin your ears back.
And no Justin Jefferson. So
Yeah.
it's tough on the Vikings. Brian,
Oh, he's not playing this week? Oh, that's great.
he's on injured reserve. So one thing the Niners have been very, very good at doing this year is keeping the turnovers positive. Who do you think's going to grab a turnover this week? Do you think the Niners are going to keep turnovers positive?
Well, we need some fumbles. I mean, they got two picks, right, on Sunday. So I'd love to keep that up and also, get some punch outs on the football. So I know, Fred Warner's a guy who we all think of as can do that, but we'd love to see just someone else get just get a fumble recovery. If it's Fred Warner, props it up. But I'd love to see some punch outs.
So for my potential star of the game, which we did last week, I'm going to go back to Nick Bosa. So far, I've run 2.5 miles. I'm a little
A load 2.5 miles.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed. So I'm going with Nick Bosa, 4 sacks, push that up to 6.5 miles. Tim, who's going to be your star?
I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to Brock Purdy. I think he bounces back this game. I think he gets his timing back. I'd say we've seen what Purdy can do. He had his first poor showing in his career. So I think he comes back and he bounces back with 2 touchdown passes.
Brian?
I'm gonna say the offensive line is gonna show up and not back down and give Purdy the time to make his reads, get some good throws to Kittle, Jennings and Ayuk. And they're gonna be the supporting cast that's gonna have Brock Purdy come back from this week 6 debacle. So
Nice.
that's
All right. Well, Brian, why don't you give us your trivia results and we'll wrap it up with our final thoughts.
all right. So 1959, the ownership group of the Minnesota Vikings were awarded an AFL franchise. The Minnesota franchise only gained acceptance in the NFL after which city backed out? So Tim, you said
Kansas City.
Okay. John, what'd you say?
I said St. Paul.
St. Paul. Okay. So in 1959, George Halas of the Chicago Bears proposed expansion to Dallas and in Houston to counteract the AFL. Houston couldn't secure the stadium rights, so Minnesota backed out of the AFL and jumped to the NFL. So it was Houston. Yep. Okay. Number two, Minnesota great Fran Tarkenton played quarterback from 61 to 78. What team was he traded to, and how many years did he play for that team?
I said the Giants in 2 years.
And I agree.
John. Okay. So it was the New York Giants. You're right. But it was from 67 to 71. So 5 years, 67, 69.
Oh, well,
That's played
and then he got traded back.
yeah.
Then he got traded back to Minnesota. Okay, so number 3, what's the name of the the Minnesota Vikings mascot?
Skull.
Skull.
Yes, that is their saying, and they do say that, I think, for every touchdown and to start the game. But it's there's 2. There's actually the main one is Victor the Viking, and so they have some story on their website how he's related to Thor and
All right.
Odin and stuff.
I almost
And
said
then-
Vinny the Viking, but I was like, all right, yeah.
And then from 94 to 2005, they had actually a guy, a fan, dress up as Ragnar the Viking. So who's an homage to a Danish and Swedish king from the 900s. But I'm assuming he's got all the horns and the beard, and he's got that motive.
Can I make a request? You're asking questions that are extreme. I know I've gotten some of the really offhanded ones correct, but I mean, you're really reaching into the bag.
Hey, well, I thought that, you're right. I would have not. I'll probably, you know what? I'll ask that's incredible type question.
Oh, great.
So-
Can't wait.
I think Ragnar,
we're playing
like,
Cincinnati, right? Okay.
We're
That's
playing
next week.
Cincinnati, next week.
There you
yeah.
go. Number 4. Okay, so this one I thought you guys would get. So who was a player whose number was retired in 2001?
I'll just throw Randy Moss. I don't know. No, it wasn't Randy Moss. Anthony Carter.
Oh, Chris Carter.
No. This one actually is more of a sad story. This one actually had to do with 77, their offensive tackle, Corey Stringer. You
Oh,
remember that?
Corey. Yes, I do. He collapsed from, I think, heat exhaustion in training camp.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ohio State guy.
Ohio State guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so it happened like in August of 2001.
All right. Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So sad story. And then he did pass away from heat exhaustion. And then I think now there's rules in place,
Right.
for stuff like this. So, players dressing in white, like lighter colors, and
Mhm.
making sure there's shade and a lot of adequate water. So, yep, that was it. So Corey
All right.
Stringer.
Cool.
He was a person.
Well,
Okay.
rest in peace, Corey. Final thoughts, Brian.
I'm going to see us bounce back this week, next Monday night. So I'm going to think positive thoughts and agree with what you guys just said. I think our offense bounces back. Brock Purdy is going to have a good game. Then we're going to win the turnover battle. So, Tim?
I like that John refers to this podcast as a therapy session. I will be an advocate for holistic new age music being played over the voice track when John does the editing. So thanks, John, in advance for doing that.
You're welcome. Do you have any final thoughts about the game?
Oh, yeah, that. Yeah, I agree with Brian. I think the Niners bounce back from this. I think Minnesota, they're 2-4. They eked out a win against the Bears in the rain. So I think the Niners are going to come in this one pretty well motivated. And I think they match up very well against the Vikings.
Yeah, I'm going to go with hope springs eternal. We'll sweep the Browns game under the rug. And I logically, I'm like, I like where we're at. We're 5-1. We're still tied for the number 1 seed. But it's just the ones that get away that are the most frustrating. And then I just have to remember that last year we were 3-3. And the year before it was even kind of worse. We still got to the NFC Championship game. So long season, not even halfway there yet. Just got to take them one game at a time. I think the Niners bounce back. I think they have a good game, and I think we would just keep on going. So for all of those who've been listening, thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing the Niners bounce back. We just say keep the faith, stay faithful to the Bay, and peace out, Niners Nation. Talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening to Niners Talk. Stay faithful.